Available for CX and UX consulting, projects, and training. Contact us for a free consultation.
Hey everybody, sorry I'm late. I lost track of time and I forgot what day it was. And for office hours, I start at 6:15 p.m. And for podcasts, I usually do 6 p.m. And so I was waiting for 6:15. I totally forgot. So if you were waiting for me, thank you so much for waiting and joining in live. I don't know what day it is anymore. Do you? It's Wednesday, April 8, 2020. This is episode 31 of the podcast, and this is the UX tipping point of Pal Mickey. And I'm going to get the chat rooms opened up, and then the plan for today is I have a bunch of slides to show you, and I have a story to tell you. If you are listening without looking at the screen, or you're listening later on the podcast, like on Spotify and iTunes and things like that, I promise I will describe the slides because I know not everybody can see them. So I will do my best to give a description. What I'm going to do is go through my content and go through the slides. And as I'm talking, if you're joining live, you're absolutely welcome to leave comments or leave questions. And what I'll do is after I'm done with the slides and the content, I'll check back with the YouTube chat and the LinkedIn chat to see if anybody had comments or questions. And from there, we can enter into a bit of a discussion or question and answer if you guys would like to do that. So I am going to take a couple of things off the screen so that I can get the slides up and tell you all about Pal Mickey, one of the most interesting innovations of some decades, and one you've probably never heard of. And there's an interesting reason why you've never heard of him. So let me bring that up. There we go. And now I will switch over to PowerPoint and let's talk about Pal Mickey. So the reason why I want to talk to you about Pal Mickey is because there is a really awful conference presentation out there. There is a speaker who I won't name. You might know who I'm talking about, but I'm not going to name this person. I'm just going to call him a speaker. And he gives this talk everywhere, especially last year and before. And his talk to me is a real example of why we really need to get back to critical thinking when we think about speakers, authors, trainers, and anybody claiming to be a guru or leader. So the speaker opens his talk by trying to get you to laugh at how bad Disney's hotel booking was, their website, how bad their hotel booking website was in 1997. Well, who had a great or perfect website in 1997? Of course, I did. This was my homepage in February 1997. I hope you are duly impressed. Okay, let's get that out of here. So why does the speaker want you to laugh at Disney and make you think that they did something so bad or wrong back in 1997? According to the speaker, Disney noticed that a lot of people, well, maybe not a lot, but some people were booking the wrong location. What I've got on the screen, and of course what I had on the screen before was my ridiculous homepage from 1997. Hard to describe, let's just say very 1997. What I've got on the screen now are just the logos of Disneyland, California and Walt Disney World, Florida. So the speaker tells you that back in 97, some people didn't really understand that Disney had these two parks in America, or they couldn't tell them apart. They didn't know which was in which state because their names are kind of similar. People think of Disneyland, Disney World. Where are these things? And what ended up happening was Disney realized that some people were booking a hotel room at Disney, California, and then showing up at Disney, Florida, or vice versa. The speaker tells you that Disney's solution was to have an always available block of rooms so that if someone showed up in Florida with a California hotel reservation, Disney didn't have to turn them away. They had a room for them. But the speaker tries to get you to laugh at this as a problem Disney couldn't seem to solve, a problem that made them leave money on the table with these unsold hotel rooms. He tells you, wow, their hotel booking website was so bad, it couldn't help people understand if they wanted to go to California or Florida. But that's not the website's fault. Plenty of people have no idea how many Disney parks there are in the world or where they're located, and people could easily think they're going to Disneyland when they're planning a trip to Disney World. So use your critical thinking, and you'll actually see that Disney's solution is a genius way to make money from the hotel reservation while proactively predicting a customer mistake and having a solution for it. They also don't bother trying to use their website to school or lecture people like, now, are you sure you mean to go to California? I mean, is that what the speaker wants them to do? That wouldn't be a great user experience. So, Disney solved it in a way that allowed customers to make the mistake while keeping the solution all transparent to the customer. To me, this is an amazing customer experience and probably something Disney still does, though I don't know. But it's not something that we should laugh at as poor business. As my boyfriend points out, and also the speaker tells you that Disney was in the UX dark ages because of this bad website. And as my boyfriend points out, it would be the UX dark ages if Disney had no idea what their customers were doing, if they did no research, and if they made no adjustments due to the natural behaviors they were noticing in their customers. That's the UX dark ages. But Disney parks and hotels are the opposite of that every minute of the day. The speaker's presentation then introduces his model of UX maturity and tells you Disney was at the lowest level of UX maturity until they released MagicBands. The speaker has his own model of UX maturity, which is seen here from a photo I took at one of his talks. So for people not looking at the screen, I'm going to read you his 5 growth stages of organizational UX design. Stage 1, dark ages, no UX design. No resources for design. All resources go to business and technological needs. Stage 2, spot UX design. Occasional UX projects with limited success. Stage 3, UX design as a service. The UX team serves projects on an as-needed basis. Stage 4, embedded UX design. Project teams get their own resources. And stage 5, what he calls infused UX design. Every project team member has fluent design skills. I want to read that one to you again. Every project team member has fluent design skills. So to compare models, my Delta CX model of UX maturity starts with a distillation of Nielsen-Norman Group's model. And then I added a measurement of autonomy. So I've got 2 measurements in my UX maturity model. Because to me, UX maturity isn't only about who does the work, but do we have power over our own domain? Are we specialists? Do we have a seat at the table? But for this speaker's model, the pinnacle of UX maturity is when we have no autonomy. Anybody can do our jobs. Everybody's a designer and has what he calls fluent UX design skills. When people put models up on screens, we love them. We click like, we share them out, we take a picture of the screen. But how often do we stop and think about them? If we dive into this speaker's model, you can see it starts out as a variation of Nielsen-Norman Group's model of UX maturity, except the end goes horribly wrong. Instead of ending up with a chief experience officer and CX and UX baked into the whole organization, including company strategy, this guy tells you the pinnacle of maturity is when every project team member has fluent design skills. Let's stop and understand what that means. That means the product manager on your team is recognized by others as having UX design skills. Your developer and QA people, they have fluent UX design skills. I guess that means anybody can do the design. Who really needs UX specialists? This model comes from the guy who always says everybody is a designer. And he has a real reason to keep pushing you to try to believe that your company is at its best when everybody is considered a designer. He actually tells you during his talk that he can come train your company to be at that top level. Now, every conference I speak at tells you not to hard sell to the audience, but Honey Badger don't care. This guy tells you he can come train your company so that everybody's a fluent UX designer. What does that have to do with Disney? Evidently nothing. When you hear this talk live or you look up the archived ones on YouTube, notice how often he mentions the training he offers. He never gives you a case study about the outcomes of his training. You're just supposed to think Disney were losers until a few years ago, and you'll need his training to get to ultimate UX maturity. The speaker tells you Disney was in the UX dark ages from 1997 when they had this terrible website until they released MagicBands in 2014, though he has the year wrong. MagicBands were released in 2013, and it's sad that he didn't even Google that to make sure he had it right. And as far as I can tell, this speaker had nothing to do with MagicBands. He doesn't claim to have been involved with them. They were invented mostly by Disney Imagineer John Paget, who later went on to bring the same technology to Princess cruise ships as their ocean medallion. So, what are magic bands and why are they this amazing innovation that this speaker claims takes Disney out of the dark ages? And of course, he claims they are now firmly placed at his pinnacle of UX maturity, where everyone at Disney must be a fluent designer, though that's not how these things happen. So here's a picture on the screen of my two magic bands. If you don't see the screen, basically they are wearables on your wrist. They're kind of plasticky and rubbery. They wrap around your wrist and they snap into place with these little holes and like a pin. And they're waterproof and you can swim with them. And they are wearables that are fitted with sensors that are connected to your Disney account. So when you're at Walt Disney World in Florida, they're all you need. They're your park ticket, they're your hotel room key, they are your room charge device. So, for example, last time I was there, they were still using old Apple devices. And what happens is you can hold out your wrist or wherever you're wearing this thing, and they hold like an old iPhone or iPod over it. In a cradle, and it accesses your account. You put in a PIN number, boom, you've paid for a donut, a churro, or your dinner. And the Magic Bands also store your fast passes. Those are special passes you can get that allow you to wait on a shorter line for a popular ride later in the day. So basically, when you go to Disney World in Florida, you are waving your wrist at stuff all day. Also, the middle of them with the sensor pops out. So if you don't want to wear it as a kind of like a watch style thing or you don't have good mobility, you can pop that out and you can wear it in other things, lanyards, keychains. Now, since Disney knows who you are because this Magic Band is connected to your account, they will greet you differently based on things they know about you. So when someone enters the park, they hold their Magic Band up to this reader. If their park ticket is good for that day, it'll light up in green. And the worker, and Disney calls their workers cast members, that's Disney's language, they welcome you to the park. But I am a small owner in Disney's timeshare system because I am a super fan. I am obsessed with Disney World in Florida. And part of the branding of the timeshare system is that when you stay in one of Disney's timeshare rooms, you are coming home. So when I enter the park and I hold my Magic Band up to the reader to enter that park and my ticket is good, it lights up purple. And that clues the cast member to say, "Welcome home," which is really neat. Now, Disney has also played with what they can personalize because you're wearing a Magic Band and they know who you are. Here's the end of the Haunted Mansion ride in early 2007. As I passed by the mirror at the end, there was a tombstone with my name on it. It's hard to see in the picture, but if you look at the far right of that picture, you will hopefully be able to make out a little grayish tombstone that says Debbie. And for those not seeing the screen, that's what it is. It's a picture I tried to take while on a moving ride because I had heard they were doing this, so I had my phone ready, and I did actually catch the tombstone with my name on it, and they got that from my Magic Band. Your Magic Band is also your connection to any photo of you taken by Disney. So if you've had your photo taken by photographers around the parks, then they scan your magic band so that that photo is associated with your account? Did you go on a ride that took a picture of you at a surprising moment? After you get off the ride, you used to have to wait by the TVs to see which was the picture of you and go and wave your band at it. But now I've noticed in the last couple of years, I get off a ride, there's no TVs, and I open up my account in the app, and there's the picture of me on that ride. So they're actually doing it to match up the picture of you with your magic band. So just taking more friction out of it. It's really neat. Yes, Disney is collecting fantastic amount of data about park visitor behavior, but they do keep that to themselves. It's not really relevant outside of their parks or hotels anyway, so even if you thought they were selling that data, what would they even do with it? And I can't wait until some lost child is found because Disney somehow was able to find them because of their magic band. Then hopefully everyone will calm down and not worry that this is some breach of privacy. They were already tracking us anyway. But the magic bands really make things easier to use and more magical. They're a super invention, and they came about not because everybody at Disney is a fluent UX designer, but because Disney hires amazing people as Imagineers and lets them play with ideas and solutions to real problems. Just go look up some of the interviews with John Paget about how he invented magic bands, and he had this preliminary idea. He brought it to the then CEO of Disney, and the guy said, if I give you a lot of money and a large team, can you make this go faster? And I think they spent $1 billion on it, I believe, because remember, not only were they developing the technology and the wearable, but they also had to re-outfit all the parks with all of these readers. They had to redo every hotel door. So, I mean, a huge project, but it's been very successful for them. So we are going to work our way back to Pal Mickey. So we're going backwards in time. Pal Mickey came before Magic Bands. And to understand Pal Mickey, you first have to understand a little more about Walt Disney World in Florida because it's fairly unique for one main reason: size. It's 42 square miles, or about 109 square kilometers. It's the size of San Francisco. It's so big. I believe it has the third or fourth largest mass transit system or bus system in the United States of America. Disney World in Florida has multiple fleets of boats in varying sizes that take people between hotels and parks and Disney Springs, the shopping, dining, and entertainment district. Disney has a fleet of over 1,100 city buses with over 400 full time drivers plus some part time drivers. And they recently built the Skyliner, which is a sort of ski lift gondola system connecting people between hotels and parks. They also have the iconic monorail and miles of track. I could talk for an hour just on transportation, but I'm trying to explain to you this place is huge. It has its own mass transit system. Walt Disney World in Florida has four main parks in completely different locations around their property. There's the Magic Kingdom, which has the famous castle. There's Epcot, which has what everyone thinks is a big golf ball at the front. There's Hollywood Studios, which used to have Mickey's hat from Fantasia as the big thing, but they took it down. And Animal Kingdom, which their big thing is the Tree of Life. Disney's got two water parks, two miniature golf courses, over 30 hotels on the Disney grounds, and that shopping, dining, and entertainment district. There are full-size golf courses, plus the ESPN Sports Center where sporting events are held. I swear every time I'm there, there's some sort of high school cheerleading or dance competition going on. The parks are huge. They say you can fit all of Disneyland, California in the parking lot of one of Disney's four parks in Florida. If you walk a circle around Epcot from inside of Epcot, I believe it's almost 2 miles. That's what, 3.6 kilometers? The scale is immense. The amount of activities and rides you can do seems endless, and that brings us to a problem Disney needed to solve. How do we help a family, especially first time visitors, make sense of this place? Sure, Disney gives people maps, but they need a lot more help than that. How will they know which rides have short wait times? How will they know when to line up for a parade? Where's Mickey right now so kids can take pictures with him? Nowadays, Disney characters have set locations and set times so you know where to find them to get your picture taken. But back then, they walked around the park and you found them or you didn't. And many crying children did not. So go back to 1997. We don't have smartphones yet. Many people don't even have cell phones. How are we going to make this huge Disney World meaningful and easier to understand for people? This is where Pal Mickey comes in. In 1997, when a speaker wants you to believe that Disney was in the UX dark ages, Disney Imagineers were working on solving this problem. They outfitted the 4 parks with thousands of sensors, and they built a little plush Mickey that kids could love and carry. So if you're looking at the slide now, this particular slide is a screenshot from archive.org, the Wayback Machine, of Disney's website in 2004, where they are showing you a little bit about Pal Mickey and why you'd want to buy him, and it shows a family cuddling a little plush guy. Um, so you could buy him different outfits. I remember seeing in the shops a safari outfit and a rain poncho. He also had a tuxedo at one point and I think a Fantasia outfit. You could clip him to your bag or lanyard. And he interacted with the sensors in the park because he had an infrared sensor in his nose. So yeah, Disney was tracking your movements around their world, though back then anonymously since the toys weren't registered to any particular family. But you can start to see how it's pre-MagicBands. Pal Mickey had a speaker inside of him, and he could vibrate when he had something to tell you. If you were bored on a line, you could squeeze him or his hands to hear trivia questions, jokes, or play games with him. I remember going to Disney World as a kid and waiting 90 minutes for a 5-minute ride. This alone is a fantastic idea in this pre-smartphone world. Excuse me, taking a drink. For those just joining, we're talking about Pal Mickey. So, Pal Mickey did so much more than be cuddly, wear cute outfits, and tell you jokes. Because he knew where you were, thanks to the sensors. He knew what time it was, because he's so smart. And that means he would remind you of parades and show times for the park that you're in. He could tell you where the characters were so you could get that family photo, because he knows where you are and he knows where they are. He was the closest thing to an app before we even had smartphones. He was proactive and predictive. I had a friend who was an Imagineering assistant in those days. She remembers being sent into Animal Kingdom, one of the 4 parks, with a little metal box. She was told to walk around and make a note of every time the box talked to her. That was 1998. When someone wants you to believe that Disney was in the UX dark ages. Pal Mickey took many years to develop and was finally released to the public in 2003. He cost $50. And in a pre-smartphone world, I would imagine he was a cuddly plush lifesaver for many families. Pal Mickey was discontinued in 2008 once Disney was making smartphone apps, which makes sense. But he still works. He will tell you jokes and stories, but he's no longer connected to park sensors that would give you in-the-moment information. The development of Pal Mickey led directly to the development of the Magic Band. So I'm going to call Pal Mickey the UX tipping point for Disney World parks and resorts. A tipping point is defined as the time at which a change or an effect cannot be stopped. And you can see that once they were working on Pal Mickey, Disney was rapidly moving forward with expensive innovations created solely to improve customer experiences. But let's move back in time even before Pal Mickey. Disney has never been in the UX dark ages. Let's go back to the mid 1950s. Disneyland in California opened in 1955. Walt Disney himself used to like to walk the park and watch people. Two famous stories come from this time. One is that he found that guests at Disneyland were littering. So he went out to the park and he didn't ask people questions or survey them. He watched and followed people. I know you might think that's creepy, but it's the original observational study. And he counted how many steps they took between when they finished their hot dog and when they gave up looking for a trash can and just threw the wrapper on the ground. He counted, for many people, 20 steps. So he instructed his workers to place a garbage can roughly every 20 steps, and of course, the littering greatly decreased. Once he noticed a cast member dressed for Frontierland, which is the American West, walking through Tomorrowland, which is the land of future and space travel. Walt was really unhappy with this worker because he was sure it was spoiling magic for guests to see a cowboy in the space travel area. But the worker explained he has to park behind Tomorrowland, so how else is he supposed to get to Frontierland other than walking through the park? Walt didn't live to see Disney World open in Florida in 1971, but the solution that they created for Florida, which was built roughly 15 years after Disneyland in California, was something they called the utilidor. When you go to a Disney park in Florida, you think you're on ground level, but you're technically on the second floor. There's an entire underground world beneath the park. This lets workers and supplies move around without guests seeing them and ruining the magic. Walt was the original modern CX guy. He's the model. He was never in the CX or UX dark ages. He and the Imagineers invented everything they needed. They needed a lifelike robot of Abraham Lincoln in 1963. They invented it. They invented computers that ran rides and shows in the late 70s when computers were barely a thing, or even before then. Nobody innovates more than Disney. It's insulting to say that Disney was in the UX dark ages, but it's dirty to claim that just to promote the training that you sell. Conference speaker guy. The last slide, by the way, was just a big picture of Walt Disney, so you didn't miss much. And this slide has a couple of words of things I'm going to say, so you're not missing much. In all of the things that I write and present, I try to arm you with ideas and arguments to deal with the uglier sides of our jobs. I promote CX and UX autonomy, specialty, and empowerment. When I think about this speaker and all the things he writes and says, where does he fight for our autonomy, our empowerment or strength? Where is he enhancing understanding of what we do and why we do it? How are his ideas getting us a seat at the table? Well, they're not. And is anything he says actionable? Was there anything in that talk that you could take to work the next day? No. You have his bizarre model of UX maturity and his plugs to train your company to get to his highest level where everybody's a designer. He makes it sound like you won't be able to achieve this yourself. You need his training. So you can't go back to work and try his ideas. He never gave you ideas. To me, this presentation is just an hour-long setup and plug for his training. That's uncool in a vacuum, but it's also uncool that he has to lie to you about a famous and mostly loved company to try to set you up to want his paid training. When the speaker comes up in conversations that I have, I often tell people bluntly, I don't like him, and I don't like his messages. The responses I typically get range from, I don't agree with most of what he says, to, it's a shame given how much clout he has that he's out there saying this garbage, to, we had him speak at our company and he was kinda a dick. Sure, those are just opinions, but you need more than a great speaker. You need a great message. Think critically about everybody and everything. And most importantly, if Disney got all of these things done when this speaker says they were in the UX dark ages, then perhaps nobody needs this guy's training. His conference presentation actually undoes itself, but only once you know about Pal Mickey. While he leaves Pal Mickey out of it, which of course he does, and he makes it sound like Disney did did nothing interesting or innovative between a bad 1997 website and awesome MagicBands in 2013, you might almost believe they were in the UX Dark Ages. But they were not. And this speaker is manipulating you to try to sell you his training. So, wrapping up, when you think about so many great inventions and innovations by the Disney Company, both in their parks and in other areas, you realize they're a model worth admiring, if not emulating. They didn't get this done with design sprints. I can't imagine anybody there is running around evangelizing design thinking. But they're also not imagining that everybody's a designer or everyone on the team is fluent in UX design. That's not how Disney Imagineers get things done. So many of our workplaces like to say they are like startups. They think like startups. First of all, no, they don't. Second, why are we copying what startups do? Many of them, they fail roughly 90% of the time. Why aren't you emulating Disney Imagineering, the most innovative group on the planet? Forget design thinking. Evangelize Imagineering. And with that, those are my slides, and I'll bring it back to the room and my face, and I will check to see if there are any questions or comments in our chat rooms. We've got Christy saying, ugh, that's fantastic. Christy, I agree with you. This is a monster, ugh. Let's see if there's anything in YouTube. Nope. I know that lately we haven't had a lot of live viewers because people are so busy with so many of the things that are going on with the quarantine. But if you guys have any comments or questions now that you've seen and heard that, won't you please give them to me? I am paying attention. And I'm taking a look here in both the LinkedIn chat and the YouTube chat. We've got 2 people live in YouTube, and we had 5 or 6 in LinkedIn. Thank you for joining. And of course, if you didn't catch all of this, all of the podcasts are archived on our YouTube channel, which you can find at deltacx.tv. That's a little redirect to our YouTube channel. Please subscribe there. And I do also release these audio only as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. Thank you for the applause. Thank you for the people. Hey, Srikant. Hey, good to see some of you guys. Thank you so much. Claps. Beautiful, beautiful. But do you guys have any questions or comments? Anything that you thought about when you saw this? Any thoughts? I want to hear people's thoughts. I appreciate the applause, but I'm hoping you guys. Well, I would love to turn this into more of a conversation and see if anybody has questions or comments. I even wore my Disney shirt for everybody today. I know it's a little hard to see. I hope it's not chroma keyed. One of my 8 zillion Disney shirts. A lot of times you guys see me at conferences and I'm wearing my Delta CX shirt, but in real life, I wear Disney shirts many days. Christy says, I said ugh when you talked about everyone becoming a designer. I know, Christy. When I heard this speaker's talk for the first time, I was not happy. And of course, I'm really not happy with a lot of things he says. Oh, yeah, Brent says, reminds me of the documentary stuff on Imagineering. Yeah, if you guys have Disney Plus now, there's a great multi-part series there. Yeah, I finished it, Brent. It's a good one. There's a great multi-part series on Disney Plus right now. I think it's called The Story of Imagineering. Is that what it's called? Story of Imagineering? Yeah, just look for it. It's original Disney content that they made just for Disney Plus. I think each episode was around an hour, and I think there were maybe 6 or so of them. And what I really liked about these Imagineering documentaries were not only did you get a lot of inside information about how they worked, but they also pulled no punches about when Disney had failures. And that's one thing that I love about Disney as a super monster Disney World fan. Speaking of Disney World fan, those of you who have met me at a conference and have seen my Delta CX shirts, you'll notice there's a number on the back because I get them from a rugby shirt dealer. And if you see me wearing 82, that is the year that Epcot opened. That's how into it I am. Christy says Disney has been an example of focusing on user experience for years. Absolutely, Christy. That's why it blew my socks figuratively off when I was sitting in that audience in September and watching this guy say Disney was in the UX dark ages in the snarky Charles Nelson Riley way that this guy talks. I lost it. I was pretty mad. I turned to the fantastic woman next to me who I'd met at the conference and I said, if he doesn't say Pal Mickey, I'm going to throw a fit. And of course, he never tells you about Pal Mickey. He just wants you to laugh at Disney was in the UX dark ages. Ugh. Yeah. Stephanie is with us in YouTube. So good to see you, Stephanie. Thanks again for those tweets. I was surprised about the last part of the person's model as well. I still think we need specialists. Stephanie, absolutely. The world needs the yous and me's and Christies and Srikants and everybody else. There is no replacement for us. There just isn't. And even if other people pick up some knowledge of UX processes or design or studied it a little bit, that's great. They can be better partners to us, just like me going to DevOps conferences has helped me be a better partner to engineering and DevOps because I understand a little bit of what they're talking about. I actually know what a CI/CD pipeline is, and I actually know what a container is and why Kubernetes is super cool. Um, so I agree with me and you that his model is just a distillation of Nielsen Norman Group's model. They have 8 stages of UX maturity. I think I boiled mine down to 5 or 6, and then I added the autonomy dimension in the Delta CX book. But this guy just goes off the rails at the end and says, "Oh no, the pinnacle of UX maturity is everyone is fluent in UX design." I think I've seen this speaker write somewhere something like even your legal department would be a fluent in UX design. And I don't drink, but I thought about starting. Any other comments or questions? This is great. I'm so happy to see Brent and everybody in the room and joining in. And let's see, there's some faces here I don't recognize. I'll mouse over this. Sanket, good to meet you. I don't know you. Stephanie says, do you think the model also depends on culture and country? Stephanie, I'm not so sure. And I know I'm not pronouncing your name totally correctly, as I'm bad with names, period. Let's face it. Do I think it depends on the culture and the country? I think that there are some cultures that are more humble than others, but I do believe ultimately that the pinnacle of UX maturity is where we have a chief experience officer, and that UX and CX are approached strategically, cross-functionally in some ways, but that we have a chief experience officer who is shepherding company-wide strategy for CX and UX, and of course has that organizational chain under them. And when I think about different cultures or countries, I can't think of a country where that shouldn't be the model. Canada? No. Italy? No. Japan? No. I can't think of a country where I would say, you know what, maybe the top of UX maturity for them shouldn't be the chief experience officer. So I think it's a great question, and I love the way you're thinking. Like, is this really a universal model? And I'm sure someone will have an opinion that says it should not be a universal model, but I think that we should be looking at models of UX maturity that establish us as specialists, but also establish our autonomy. And that's where the chief experience officer really comes in. Because if UX answers up the chain to product, there's some point in the organization where we might lose our autonomy or might not have the seat at the table or the respect or the understanding that we are shooting for. Christy asks a question that I'm going to read, and then I'm going to refuse to answer it. Christy wants to know if this model is similar to Spool's model. Christy, I'm not going to answer that because I said I wasn't going to name the speaker that I was talking about. I'm just going to make faces at the camera for a few seconds. Okay, and Brent, who comes from the learning and development side of things, the instructional design side, he says we have those types of speakers in the L&D industry as well. Sure, not fantastic speakers are unfortunately universal. That is universal. There's always somebody who's got something to sell you. And I've had some people say to me, "Well, Deb, you've got something to sell too." We all have something to sell. Every speaker who gets up there has something to sell, whether it's themselves, that they're hoping that you'll hire them or be impressed by them, whether they have a book or training. And I get that. We all have something to sell. But I can tell you, because I spoke at 50 conferences last year, we are all specifically told by pretty much every conference. Don't sell to the audience. You can mention at the beginning or end, I do this, I have a book, contact me. And those who saw my talk at the same conference where I saw this guy will note that I try to stick with that. I try to not plug myself in the middle and I plug myself at the end. Um, if I'm getting that wrong, please tell me and I will rein myself in. But no conference has complained to me yet. And I think I've spoken at 80 conferences in the last 2 years. So I hope I am not hard selling anybody and just letting people know what I am available to do should it interest them. Um, and I must not be hard selling very much or very well because I don't get a lot of business from conferences, but I enjoy doing them. And people who watch me can tell I'm enjoying it. So I keep doing them. Stephanie says, "Yeah, you can get Pal Mickey for $72.45 on eBay." Okay, well that's true too. Now I bought a Pal Mickey off eBay, and originally I was hoping to show him to you when I schedule this podcast, but the stuff that is coming to me from my storage room is not here yet, so I don't have Pal Mickey, but I do have a Pal Mickey on a cargo ship in a container who's headed this way. So I will, and I didn't have him when Pal Mickey was hot because I was like, what do I need a kid's stuffed Mickey for? And then I found out later what he was, and I made sure to buy one on eBay so that I could have one. So yeah, you can have a Pal Mickey. Some people have them up on eBay. But even if you don't buy a Pal Mickey, research more about him. It's so important to learn more about these things because to me, I think that speaker could have had a much more interesting talk if he had focused on a little bit about Pal Mickey and the innovative side of Disney. But again, that would have undone his whole point of being there, which was you should pay him for his training. I have also learned what he charges for his training, and let's just say it's at least 5 to 10 times what I charge. So, yikes! Hey, or you could have me 12 times. You could have me 10 times or him once. It's I could joke that that's the exchange rate. There's an exchange rate. Christy, thank you for the LOL. And now I have to do like a lot of winking. Any other questions or thoughts? Usually I stick around for podcasts close to an hour. We have a great conversation going, albeit a little asynchronously. We've got 3 people watching on YouTube. We've got 5 in LinkedIn. That's actually a high number for me lately with what's been going on. While you guys type out some more questions and comments, I'm just going to give you a couple of show notes. Please note that this is the last podcast for this week, but we've got some great podcasts scheduled throughout the rest of the month. On Monday, April 13, I will be doing a live podcast with a favorite guest, Michelle Ronson from Curiosity Tank, on UX research, resumes, portfolios, and interviewing. Tuesday, April 14th, as always, will be live office hours at 6:15 p.m. Italy time. And then Wednesday, April 15th, I'm going to do another solo podcast showing you some of my slides on UX and Agile and how I have found UX works best in Agile. Shifting beyond that, this one isn't on LinkedIn yet, but Monday the 20th, we are going to have a super special guest who I like to call Dr. Giles. You may know him around LinkedIn. And the title of the podcast is Clinical UX Puts the H in HCD. And Dr. Giles was a medical doctor who switched into UX. And we're going to be talking to him about stuff. So hopefully not too much about coronavirus, but more about UX and his journey and working in health-related UX stuff. So that's some show notes. Again, always remember there's always office hours if you have something to ask me. Someone sent me an office hours anonymous question recently, and they wanted to know all about Lean UX, the Lean UX book, and why I don't like it. Because I'm for Lean, I'm against the Lean UX book. So I'm going to schedule a podcast just on why I don't like the Lean UX book. And as usual, I will show my slides, speak to them, and happily take questions. So let's see. Any other questions or comments about the UX tipping point of Pal Mickey? Or Disney World. I love talking about Disney World. For people who are still here, how many of you have ever been to a Disney park and which one? I'm curious if you guys have been to the parks and how you felt about them. I'm a super fan. Now, I don't have kids. I go to experience the CX and the UX. And every time I go, I deeply research some aspect of the park, as deeply as I'm allowed as a non-employee. So, of course, as you can tell, one time I spent a lot of time researching the mass transit system. And I interviewed a bunch of bus drivers and I learned all about their training and how they get dispatched. I love that stuff. But to me, Disney is super interesting, and I hope you guys can experience the Disney parks. To me, the best one on the planet is Disney World, Florida. It's just tremendous and it's got so many varied experiences, but it is an absolute amazing constant snapshot of amazing customer experiences and user experiences that were all very deliberately designed. And Disney makes mistakes. I've got to talk, by the way, on stuff Disney puts into parks. And I even show some of the experiments they put in that were considered to be failures, and then they took them out. And I tried to run and take pictures of them while I was there, and they were there. Like one was, here's, you guys might like this. I don't know who came up with this idea, but I'm always impressed that Disney's willing to experiment. If you know Disney World, Florida, and if you know the Magic Kingdom, which is the park with the castle, and if you know Tomorrowland, which again is the space and future themed region of the park, you might know Space Mountain, the famous indoor dark roller coaster. And for some reason, Disney decided to set up cabanas. Yes, like swimming pool side at a hotel cabanas, like these little yurts, like these little tents with some chairs and stuff inside of them. And a family could rent a cabana next to Space Mountain for $800 a day. And the thinking was, oh, people get so worn out being in a Disney park all day. Wouldn't it be great if they had a little private place to relax? Now I get the thinking, but $800 and a cabana. So they put them in. Not too many people went for them. They announced that they were going to take them out, and I happened to be there, so I peeked through some trees. I took a picture of the cabanas, so I have a picture somewhere of that. Brent says he's been to Disneyland and Disney World. They're pretty different, aren't they, Brent? Christy's been to Disney World and Disneyland, including Epcot and Animal Kingdom. Fantastic. I am a super fan, so I'm hoping to go next year. Obviously, not going this year. There's a chance I could go this year. There's a conference I'm applying to in Orlando in November, and they tend to accept me. My talk's pretty popular, and they do 5 or 6 events a year around the country, and they tend to accept me. If I go, I might have to drop by. And my best female friend moved out. Okay, now I'm getting personal. My best female friend, who was the Imagineer assistant, now lives back in the Orlando area, and I get to freeload at her place. But I don't have park tickets anymore. I don't have an annual pass anymore, and man, they're expensive. So save up. Save up. Hey, if you guys don't have any other comments or questions on this particular presentation, thank you so much for joining, and I hope that it gave you some things to think about when it comes to conference speakers and articles and writers. There's some really wonderful people out there with actionable information who are very helpful to our community and our industry, and in my opinion, there are some people who are not, and who do a lot of talking and don't give you a lot of actionable stuff that you can take back to work and actually use, because instead they're trying to sell you something else. Boo! So on that note, I guess we will wrap up. I hope to see everybody next week with our continued podcasting adventures. Even though I know people are very busy and overwhelmed with conditions under the quarantine, I'm still continuing my universe of stuff. And these little sets of slides, by the way, are previews from my upcoming Delta CX workshop. So I'm taking pieces of my book, I'm building them out further, and I'm making them into a large interactive workshop. So the podcast is also a great opportunity opportunity for me to preview some of these pieces or sub-chapters for you guys and see what kinds of questions you have so I can make them better. Brent says, streets are wider at World than they are at land. Yeah, Brent, originally they bought 160 acres to build land. They've since bought more land off some neighbors, but originally they had 160 acres. And that's why Disney World, they wanted to solve the problem of size. Disney World bought 27,000 acres, roughly. Mostly under fake company names so nobody would figure out who was buying the land and raise the price. But towards the end, a savvy journalist figured out who it was and the prices went up. Sarah's here. Good to see you, Sarah. She said, I've been to Universal in Orlando and Disney in California. Yeah, I was just in Universal in November. Fun place. I liked the restaurant in the fake Greek area. What did you like? Yeah, Harry Potter World. I'm not a Harry Potter person myself, but I really enjoyed how they created the Harry Potter world. I thought the attention to theming, to me, was Disney-esque, but was just well done, whether or not you see it as Disney-esque. So thanks again to everybody for joining in. Good to see you guys. And I hope I'll see you again in the coming weeks at other podcasts. And of course, these are always archived on YouTube if you would like to watch later. YouTube is not monetized. It's free, so you don't have to worry. You shouldn't be bombarded with ads and things like that. At least I hope not. So on that note, I guess I'll end the stream. Thanks again to everybody who joined in live or is watching or listening later on. Be safe, be healthy, and we'll catch you soon.
Training, problem finding, problem solving, and innovation. Thanks for watching. Delta CX is available for consulting and projects related to CX and UX strategy, leadership, training, problem finding, problem solving, and innovation. Learn more at deltacx.com.